Hello, everyone. Well, welcome back to another raw and real episode. This one is pretty personal, like deep in bones personal. I'm still here. I'm healing. I'm learning. Definitely struggling, but I'm also surviving. And that's something that I don't take for granted. This little raw and real episode is really about the stuff that people don't talk about enough. And no, it's not the inspirational quotes or like the shiny side of recovery, but the frustration, the grief, the body confusion, the loneliness, everything that comes with this cancer thing. So I'd like to say that if you're in a dark place, or if you're trying to heal from something, physically or emotionally, whatever it may be, well, then this one's pretty much for you. So let's talk. Now, I want to start with the physical struggles of post-surgery. And I want to start with the physical part because it's what people usually ask first. Hey, how's your stomach? Can you eat yet? What can you eat? And the truth is, eating is work. It's not joyful. I've lost the joy of it. At least it's not joyful yet. The dumping syndrome, I'm sorry. It's real. You know, it's pretty real. Stomach aches, they're also pretty real. Even though I only have like 15-20% left of my stomach, those stomach aches are pretty real. And I'll feel good one moment and then be on the floor in pain the next. You know, it really feels like every bite is like an experiment. There is a fear of food now. There really is. Not because I want to restrict myself, but because I literally don't know what my body will tolerate. It's really exhausting. It's really frustrating. And then it gets really lonely when food used to be some sort of like, I won't say like a source of comfort, but it is comforting to enjoy your favorite foods. Food was also a source of culture, a source of joy. And not being able to fully enjoy it because you don't know what's going to, sit right with you, it's really frustrating. Now, the emotional toll, for sure that, the emotional weight, that's the part that really no one ever really prepares you for. Insomnia is back for sure. My anxiety, it just flares up more than I'd like to admit, a little bit more than before actually. And now that reality is settling back in, it's the appointments, they're slowing. The check-ins are fewer. Infusions, no more. Fluids, no more. It just becomes me and my mind. And so that's a lot, that's a lot to take in because at some point I would feel like I had such a huge support system that any little frustration or any little source of discomfort, I had a huge team to run to. Aside from my family, aside from my friends and everybody else. But now it feels like I'm all alone with my mind, and my mind doesn't always really want me there. So it really, some days I just feel like I should be doing more also. Like I'm falling so far behind in life. It's like, how can I be recovering, be told that I'm a successful warrior of life, yet still feel like I'm constantly failing. The pressure, that feeling like I'm not where I want to be, not just because of cancer, but because of, life in general. At my age, 36, it's like, I'm nowhere near I thought I would want to be. That's eating me. And I hate to say it, but it's been spilling into all of my relationships too, my family, my friendships, my everything. And I've been short. I've been impatient. I've been distant with people I love. And it's not because I don't care. I've also been a little bit more on the short fuse type of side. And like I said, it's not because I don't care. It's just because I'm so overwhelmed trying to keep everything together. I don't know how to show up for others in the ways I want to and I used to before. And the guilt, that's just heavy. It's really, really heavy. In regards to my friends, sometimes I just feel like, they're tolerating me, that they're loving me, and that they're just tolerating me, that they're just kind of just there for the heck of it, that they're just trying to really make me feel like I'm wanted because they have to, and then my brain just tricks me to think that constantly, because it's like, you know, you're this disabled person, right? And so I try to shut my brain down in that sense, and I try to tell it, no, it's not that. My friends love me. My best friend loves me. My closest friends love me. My family loves me. All of the people that I surround myself and I consider my close circle loves me because of who I am, not because of my condition. And yes, maybe I've solidified certain relationships because of my condition, but it's not because of my condition that I'm loved. It's because I'm me. But sometimes when you fight with your own mind, it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. It's really frustrating, because sometimes your mind is so good at creating an alternate reality that it becomes your reality. And far from it, I should feel much prouder than what I am right now, because of what I've accomplished, in 6 months, from October 23rd, when I started my first chemo infusion, up until January 3rd that I had my gastrectomy, and then February 20 something, I can't remember exactly, but February 20 something, or the 14th or 15th, that I started chemo again. It's and then March 23rd that I finished. I should 24th. I should be really, really excited that in less than about give or take 6 months, I was able to be in remission. And I should be happier. And then I feel guilty that I'm not. It's a vicious cycle. It's one thing leading on to another. It's an endless loop of frustration that it gets me pretty down. But within all of that, I've been taking therapy. I've been seeing a psychologist, a therapist, and a social worker that's been helpful along the way. And I've been learning certain things that I've been trying to put into practice. The first tip that I would like to say is part of my mental survival kit, for example, per se. My first tip is really just zoom out. When I'm spiraling, I just try to zoom out. I try to look at the entire picture, not just the worst moment of the day, but I start naming 3 things that I do have, even if it's small, or 3 things that I'm trying to ground. If I'm trying to ground myself, like 3 things that are like right in front of me. It helps. You would think that's so random, but it helps. It really does. Next thing that helps, I guess, tip number 2, communication. Relationships need communication, but not perfection. And that's something that I've been having to constantly remind myself. Communication, not perfection. Communication, not perfection. If I'm struggling to tell people, I try really hard to let them in. I'm trying hard to let them in. And so I encourage that. If you're struggling, tell people, let them in. And the real ones will understand. The ones that don't matter, well, they'll weed themselves out. Third tip, structure your chaos. I'm trying to structure my chaos. I'm trying to write down what I can control in terms of my food intake, my workouts, my sleep hygiene, anything that I can control and that's within my power to control. I try to write it down, maybe in my notes, or have a little notebook or something. That alone can lower anxiety, just trying to, journal that out. Another thing, another tip, I guess, is tip number 4, practicing radical patience. And that's hard. You're in a timeline of your own. Comparison is really going to kill your joy. It's going to kill everything that you've tried to plan for. It's going to kill it just because you're trying to compare yourself under completely different circumstances of other people. It will kill your joy. So I find it important to stay rooted in my own reality, not anyone else's highlights reel. I try to think of, myself in terms of not an Instagram reel or an Instagram story or post or feed or whatever. People on Instagram will post, the best things, the best highlights, everything that's great. they'll post it, but they won't post the hard parts. They won't post like the everyday mundane things, the things that make them human. They're not going to post. They're just going to post the highlights. And so when we're so caught up on social media and trying to compare our lives to those of highlights and reels and, stories, we won't be able to. It's going to kill our joy. It's going to screw up our own identity. So in reality, really, your timeline is your own, and that's something I try to keep in mind every single day. And the last one, that's the hardest, I guess tip number 5, letting go of the fantasy version of yourself. That's hard. I have to let that fantasy version that I built of myself, I have to let it go. I have to replace it with the real one, with the one who's still here, with the one that's still fighting, the version that is really me, that, deserves love too, compassion, love, a little TLC, that's the one, that's the real one, and that's the one I have to care for. And so the sooner I realize that, the easier it's going to be for me to understand exactly what it is that I need to work on, what it is that is going to get me the necessary, not closure, but the necessary clarity to move on forward with things. And so, yeah, that's me, that's me recently. There's been a lot of things changing, like I said, my relationships have been very affected. A lot of my friends, we've had, I'm not going to say arguments, but we've had, some disconnect and some, I guess, on my end, like I said, my mind tricks me to think that I'm losing them, and that now that I'm getting better, like that I'm not worth, their compassion or their friendship. It's hard, So yeah, I'm tired, I'm healing, I'm unsure, but for sure I'm still trying. So if you're here with me, maybe going through something similar, just know that you're not weak for feeling the way that you do. I try to remind myself constantly, I'm not weak. Even though I might feel weak, even though I might feel like, there's so much that I have to work on and so much that I still have to accomplish, I'm not weak, and sometimes, as we all know, survival isn't pretty, but it's still survival, and, that's what really matters. So yeah, no, that's a reality check of this, healing journey. It's not pretty, it's very real, it's very blunt, it's very raw. And so I wanted to make this, part of this raw and real segment, just because I wanted this to be very unedited. It's like pure unfiltered emotions and raw things going on that, I'm just kind of like, ugh, this is where I'm at. And I wish I was in a better place, but, going back to reframing your mindset, it's not like that, so for everyone, the very few that are here with me, like, thank you so much, thank you for sticking around for this real talk. I'll keep sharing the ugly, and the beautiful, because both, deserve to be seen. It's part of the journey, it's part of the healing process. So within that, thank you so much again. Please take care of yourself. And if today's hard, I'm very proud of you for just making it through. I'm proud of me. I'm really proud of me. This weekend was tough. And so I'm proud of myself. I made it. So I'm proud of you too. But yeah, so just a little something. And like, if this episode, really hit home or, really resonated, share it with someone. Someone might need it, or, just for the heck of it. And if you're out there struggling in silence, please feel free to shoot me a message. I think it's really important when we remind ourselves that we're not alone, especially us when we're battling things in silence, when we're very scared to reach out to the people that we feel we have to have a certain image to. It gets very lonely. So, just hit me up, feel free to do so. And like I said, community builds community. I've always been a huge believer in that. And so within a community of people that feel very big, I think we can support each other magnificently. So again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for staying. And hopefully now I'm off to get some coffee, and well, probably not coffee. I'm gonna get a pink drink because I've been cutting up on coffee anyways. But anyways, enjoy this beautiful day. And again, thank you so much for sticking it with me. Cool. Bye.